Over to Jackie Waldman and Wendy Weinberger, our presenters for the evening. Thank you both so much for being here. I am going to spotlight you both. And now I lost Wendy.
Thank you.
There you go.
Okay. So I am going to hopefully share my screen. Can I do that? It says it's disabled.
Let me make you a host. Give me just a second.
Okay. Thanks.
There you go. You should both have sharing ability now.
Okay, I'm going to share and handle the slides, so we're good there. Okay, give me 1 second to get this started.
While you're doing that, just a quick correction on my date for the Jingle Jangle fundraiser. I'm sorry, I don't know what year I'm in. The Saturday I'm talking about is Saturday, December 14th. The 10th is a Tuesday. I'm not talking about Tuesday. Saturday the 14th. Save the date for the Jingle Jangle fundraiser. Thank you very much. And I will...
Give me 1 second to swap screens here. I thought I had already done that, but it's not seeming to do that. So let me just... It's sharing the wrong screen right now. There we go. Okay, can everyone see a slide?
Yep.
Okay, terrific. Okay, so thank you for having us, first of all. Jackie Waldman has been wonderful to meet, and she is an incredible resource with lots of offerings of services to help this group. She is going to talk about the background for EF and some other information to start things out, and then I will pick up at the end with 10 tips for you to take home with. We have a lot to share. We're probably going to go a little fast, but this will be recorded and you can always reach out to us as well. So to give it a start, this presentation is called Starting the Year Strong, Executive Functioning Tips for SEPTA in Fairfax County. And so we are thrilled to be here and really excited to share these tips and hope that you can implement them immediately at home.
Oh, Wendy, I'm just going to hop in here for a second. I know that you were scheduled for 2 presentations tonight, but I'm going to set up the other presentation to be done asynchronous. I never can say that word correctly. Since Wendy and I spent so much time on this one, we wanted to give you a lot of detail here. And I decided, this way, instead of spreading us too thin, it was better to put the meat into one thing. Okay. And by the way, Wendy is out of this world, and we just met for the first time as a result of this. And we had so much art. We were able to collaborate beautifully together, and to support all of you. So anyway, now back to you, Wendy.
Okay. So I apologize when this converted into, there's only a few slides that are like this, but when it converted to PowerPoint for some reason, it changed the headings, but this is who we are. So real quick, I'm Wendy Weinberger. I'm the president and co-founder of Illuminos Academic Coaching and Tutoring. We are local in the DC metro area. We work both in person and virtual and hybrid. We specialize in a research-based and evidence-driven executive functioning curriculum that we integrate into students' everyday world. And we work in the home. We don't have a center. So we come in and just like a coach coaches on a basketball court, we coach where the students are working at home. Just a little bit about me. I started the business in 2016 and brought my cousin's business up from Texas, and we are called Illuminos. If you happen to know people in Texas, they are called Staying Ahead of the Game, very similar sister businesses. And we launched locally in Loudoun and then have expanded throughout the DC metro area. And you will see how to contact us and Jackie as we go through the presentation. That's all I need to share for now. I hope you guys enjoy it, and we can always answer questions at the end. Jackie?
Hi, I'm Jackie. So I am a certified ADHD and executive function coach, retired New York City school teacher with 30 years experience. Oh, sounds like I'm reading what I wrote. A parent, And also, and so I bring all of these roles together. I'm licensed with general and special education, general and special education. I worked with both populations over the 30 years I worked in New York City. And I bring all of that, the teacher, the parent, and the coach all together to support you and your family. I work on Zoom. I'm located in New York. And I coach adults, children, parents, and parents and the whole family. In addition to that, let's see, what else do I do? Oh, I also train teachers. Okay, I do some teacher training. And and I'll talk about some of my services at the end in more detail.
Okay. So we're going to go over the agenda in true executive functioning style. We want you to know and see what's coming. So tonight we are going to talk about what is executive functioning, and is my child struggling with executive functioning skills or lack of skills? What are the components that make up executive function? What exactly is executive functioning? We're going to go over how to support your child. And then we are going to talk about 10 strategies. So you still get the 10 tips, just in a different format tonight. 10 strategies that you can use today at home to help your students and your children get set up for success right now. And then finally, how we can help. So it would be great if you guys could throw into the chat. Oops, I don't know how to do that. Throw into the chat maybe the ages of your children and what grades they're in. That would be really helpful for us to see and know. And then we'll have a Q&A at the end. So please go ahead and hold your questions until the end, or you can put them in the chat and we'll review them at the end. Okay, with that, I am turning this over to Miss Jackie.
Sorry, I do also want to let you know, we did ask for some questions ahead of time, so I'm pulling them from the Excel file so that we have those available as well.
Perfect.
Wonderful. Okay. Now I need to move my screen a little bit so I can see, because the chat's getting in the way. Okay. What are executive functions? Executive function and self-regulation skills are the mental processes that enable us to plan, focus attention, remember instructions, and juggle multiple tasks successfully. Just as an air traffic controller system at a busy airport safely manages the arrivals and departures of many airplanes on multiple runways, the brain needs this skill set to filter distractions, prioritize tasks, set and achieve goals, and control impulses. And in more detail, executive function skills provide critical supports for learning and development. And while we are not necessarily born with these skills, we are born with the potential to develop them through interaction and practice. Center on the Developing Child at Harvard University. Next slide.
Yep, sorry.
So often when I share about all the different executive functions, people have said to me, yes, but what does it look like when people are struggling? So I have 3 case studies here, and I want you to put in the chat what you're observing. Okay, here's case 1 is Natalia. I named each of the kids after some of my students from my last year teaching in 2021. The name doesn't match the personality, but pop something in the chat that you notice. Procrastination. Thank you, Lauren. Overwhelm. You bet. Don't know where to start. Prioritization. Again, definitely overwhelmed. You could just see it, right? Right, let's go on to the next one. ADHD paralysis. Okay. Here's Evan. What are we even talking about? I'm bored. Maybe I should just leave. On the surface, it looks like defiance, but could there be more to the story? What do you think? Pop some answers in the chat. Expectations outweighing where a student, okay, auditory processing. Yep, that sounds possible, definitely. Focusing, PDA. Isolation, bored. Could be bored, could be something else, disengaged. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Valerie. Did I ever tell you about when I have a few questions? Wait, sorry to change the subject, but I just remembered. Squirrel. ADHD, impulsive, classic ADHD. Classic girl with ADHD, right? Scattered. Overfilled with ideas. Her head's very busy. I get it. And one more. Anybody else? All right, let's go on to the next one. So now we're going to go into executive functions. So executive functions fall into three categories that overlap. Saying out loud half of what they're thinking in their head. Sorry, now I'm doing a squirrel. Anyway, cognitive, emotional, and behavioral. Now we're going to focus on the cognitive and the behavioral today and just touch on the emotional, but you're going to be able to see that if someone is struggling in more than one area, how it would affect them emotionally. Okay, so the first thing I want to mention, another thing I want to mention before we go on to the next slide is depending on the disability, an individual or a child in particular's executive functions could be up to 30% behind their peers. So you can be looking at this 12-year-old in middle school who's just voice is starting to deepen, maybe a little facial hair, highly intelligent, but still may have the executive skills of a third grader. Wow, so now you can understand why it's so hard for them to get stuff done. Or an 8-year-old third grader who could have the executive skills of a kindergartner, highly intelligent, reading above grade level. However, there's this. A 14-year-old going to high school, super cool. Executive skills could be as low as a 9-year-old. 18-year-old going to a college in another state, executive skills could be as low as a 12-year-old. That's a middle school kid. And all the things they need to manage in that situation. Okay, now we're going to go on to the last one. 25-year-old adult, also known as the failure to launch. So smart, or struggles in other areas too. That's possible, but might have the executive skills of a 16-year-old high school student. Not everyone's on the same timeline. Now we're going to dive into the individual executive functions. I'm going to talk about each one. Steps to reach your goal. Planning. Planning means you need to look into the future. And for people with executive function challenges, things are either now or not now. They can't see into the future. Planning involves seeing a goal and creating the steps. But if you can't see past now, that's not so easy. It's also organizing your thoughts. Prioritizing, that's next. Now you have your goal and all the things you want to do, all those steps you want to take toward it. What's first? Now you have to decide what's first, what's second, and what's not at all, because some of the things may be not at all. For people who have executive function challenges, they may be looking at a whole bunch of tasks that seem equally important. You know what you call that? Analysis paralysis. Guilty. I have ADHD. Anyway, too much information. Let me keep going. Sometimes, if they can't prioritize, they end up doing the wrong things or the unimportant things instead of the things that are really need to get done now. Okay. Next, task initiation. Task initiation involves self-motivation or sometimes parent motivation. Okay. But for many people, just getting started is so difficult and they're labeled a 4-letter word. You know the word, lazy. I hate that word. That's one of my least favorite words in the English language. Lazy or procrastinator. Lazy means they can't get started. And sometimes task initiation struggles will have to do with another area, another executive function, which we'll get to in a few minutes. Okay, now you started the task. Now we're talking about goal persistence. What you're off and running, and now it gets hard, it gets boring, there are distractions. You're out. Okay. The next one is metacognition, which also involves self-monitoring. It's awareness of your own thoughts, thought processes, monitoring what you're doing, figuring out what's working, what's not working, and being able to manage ourselves and work independently. Now, for the metacognition, when things are not working, we hop into the next one, which is flexible thinking. So now that you see what's not working, what are some of the other possibilities for things that you can do instead? Coming up with multiple ideas, some that will be great and some that will stink, but at least coming up with them. Okay. Next slide. Okay. So the next part of the cognitive control is the tools you'll need to manage to reach your goal. Sustained attention. Without it, everything is more difficult. You may be trying really hard, harder than anyone can imagine, but you are not absorbing. You may be reading the same page over and over and over and saying to yourself, okay, I have no idea what I just read. Okay. When in class, students who appear sometimes may or may not appear to be struggling, it may only absorb a portion of what the teacher is teaching with full effort. The teacher may be teaching 3 concepts. The student with attention attention issues may only absorb 1 of the 3. Okay, and it also will take that person longer to complete the same tasks. Distractions. We know about that. It impacts all of us in this fast-moving world. Anyway, when we know about screens, but really distractions are anything that keeps you from doing the thing that you're trying to do. And so for distractions, 2 things. One thing that happens is internal distractions. Those are the thoughts in your head, sometimes physical sensations, or emotional needs. Those can all be distractions to you. One of the things I want to say about distractions is that people believe multitasking is a wonderful way to get things done. But the truth is, on the research on multitasking is that you can only really do one thing at a time. All right, you could do things like fold your laundry while you're listening to the music, but if you're literally task switching, and the research says that every time you switch from one task to another, you have to readjust and refocus your attention, which actually decreases your productivity dramatically. I still haven't learned that lesson. I'm still trying. Okay. Okay. So next is working memory. Working memory is the information that you keep in your mind and you use to do a task. All the things you need to remember to do a task. So I always think of it in terms of driving. What things do I need to remember if I am driving? I need to remember how to drive the car, where I'm going, rules of the road, who's in the car, the weather conditions, all these things all at the same time. And with working memory, that's a lot of stuff to internalize all at the same time. But how does it affect our students? Multi-step problems, multi-step directions, trying to remember all the steps. Here's another one for reading for little people. Once they learn the sounds of the letters, when they blend them together, they have to be able to remember the sounds of the letters in order to blend them together and all the rules of blending. And then they read a word over here and they know it, and then it comes up down here and they don't know it. These are all issues with working memory. And for older kids, it's remembering the assignments they have. When kids come home and say, I don't have any homework, sometimes they believe, I don't have any homework. They literally forgot from when they were in school, okay? And for other kids, it's remembering to turn in their assignments. And actually, I have a quick story on that. I worked with a teen who did this amazing science fair project he worked on forever. He couldn't stop talking about it. And you know what happened on the day it was due, don't you? He left it at home. Fortunately, that his teachers gave him a break because they knew him. He's a hard worker. Anyway, organization. Next, we know the effects of disorganization: decreased productivity, wasted time, wasted money for replacing lost items. For students, missing homework assignments, phones, chargers, keys. Wait a minute, that's the adults too. Okay, the phone, the charger, the keys. Okay. Anyway, all right, time management. Oh, we know lots of people who are always late, because many people, especially with executive function challenges, may lack time awareness. They really, really don't know how long it takes to complete a task. And as a result, they're either rushing or they're procrastinating. They think they're running out of time. They think they're running out of time, or I have plenty of time to do what I need to do. So some people will take on too much, and some are trying to catch up, And then what do they end up doing at the last minute? Multitasking, decreased productivity. In the end, they end up having difficulty. They're tired. And they end up with difficulty in these areas. They're tired. They're stressed. They're burnt out. Now, self-advocacy may or may not be considered an executive function. Depends who you ask, but it does involve many executive functions at the same time. You need to remember working memory, organization, task initiation, metacognition. You need to know who to go to, what to say, all these things all at the same time, and hopefully not get embarrassed. And I worked with a kid who self-advocated in class because the teacher was writing all the way across the board. And she's at the end, she's an adult now. She said, anybody still on over here? And teacher had just finished number 8. Can I erase this? Girl raises her hand. She'd been putting in 150% effort. She says, I'm on number 2. How did the rest of the class react? She did self-advocate after that. Anyway, inhibition. Okay, the ability to pause before reacting long enough to consider the consequences. It's blurting out answers instead of raising your hand. For little people, hopefully not some of the big people, it's you learning to use your words instead of your hands. For kids, teens, it may be studying instead of going out before a test. And for adults, let's throw in an adult one. It's remembering your blood sugar when you're grabbing the Ben and Jerry's when it's on sale in the supermarket. Okay, because we have issues with it too. Shifting, the ability to transition from one activity to another. We always think of that as the kid locked in the video games, or the adult locked up in Netflix. Oh, wait, just one more episode. But shifting is also difficult for kids with these challenges in between classes, middle school, from one class to another, trying to remember where I sit in this class, where do I sit in that class, what's the expectation of this teacher, what's the expectation of this teacher, wait, I have to stop at the locker, all these things. And even for the little people, my son, when the teacher was up to number 3, he didn't have the book out. He always wanted to have the book out. He just was moving at his own pace. By the way, he's a college graduate, and that was a long time ago. Anyway, but here's another thing that's a big issue shifting for kids with executive function challenges. It's that transition from awake to asleep, and asleep to awake. Teens never get up in the morning. Those with difficulty with transitions and shifting, they have an even harder time. Got it? So now, next slide. What's involved in emotional control? Now you can see how with all of these things, if people have struggles in a few of them, they compound. It's not one, it's one on top of the other, on top of the other. That can affect your emotions. And then there's a whole emotional component, which we're not going into today, but you can see what the frustration tolerance would look like. How can you help when your child is struggling? So I'm going to present the big ideas, and Wendy's going to present the 10 strategies. These are my big ideas. Step 1, hug your kid. That kid's having a rough time. And if you're the teacher, give them a high five. Number 2, listen to your kid. Really listen to what they're saying is hard for them. If they can't express it, help them by offering them a menu of choices. Could it be this or this or this or this? Is this hard or easy? So you're prompting them to be able to express what's happening. And not only when you're listening to your kid, listen and feel what they're feeling. Reflect. Don't say, oh, I know how to solve that, because nobody wants to hear that, even though we know how to solve it sometimes. Okay. Step 3, partner with the teachers. Teachers and parents need to talk to each other to find out what the other one's seeing. Okay. Because remember, we're talking about the shifting thing for a second. I'm going to go back to that for one more time. That kid who has been working really hard and all day at school, they come home and sometimes. And so the teacher might not understand why the kid can't get his homework on time. Or the parent might not understand certain things that are happening at school. Be a team. I was the parent, I was the teacher. I'm still the parent, not the teacher. But the best situations were always when we can work together. And number 4, Meet your child where they are. Remember we talked about the 30% behind rule situation. If your kid is 30% behind, or even 1 year or 2 years, or just a little bit behind their peers, you want them to feel success, feel love. And I'm going to throw one last thing in there. And remember, I'm an ADHD is my thing, but I work with people with all different kinds of challenges if they're impacted by executive functions. For some students, there's research to say that by the age of 12, people with kids with ADHD may have received 20,000 more negative messages than their peers. It's really, really hard. And that could be as simple as, why are your shoes still on the floor? Okay. Just try to pick your battles. Okay. And make them, the most important thing is your relationship with them and their self-esteem. All the other stuff is secondary. School, we'll get through school. Anyway, all right. Wendy, are we up to you? We're up to you.
We are. So hi, everyone. I am going to go through how you can actually help your child. I'm going to share tips that are actually from our program, including some worksheets and some other things that you can use to help your child. Please go ahead and start asking questions in the chat if you have any as we go, and then for Jackie or for me, and then we'll go back and revisit them. So let's get started. So a little bit about the big picture of you supporting executive functioning skills for your child. These are tactical approaches. So you want to build daily routines. You want to establish routines from getting up in the morning to going to bed at night. It includes everything with school. It also includes with coming home, and you want to repeat those daily. It's really important to repeat them daily because in order to build habits habits that ultimately become automations in the brain, automaticity, you have to repeat things again and again, and eventually the new neural pathway is created so that the child no longer has to think about it, freeing up that working memory that Jackie talked about to allow for other things. In order to help with this, use checklists for tasks. It's fantastic if you can buy a laminator. They're really cheap on Amazon. Print out a big picture with check boxes next to everything they have to do. Grab a dry erase marker, and the child can check it off every day and then wash it off at the end of the day and start again. Really important to try to do things like this. Now, remember, kids don't go to look for checklists unless they know where they are or they're in their face, right? Because this is one of the issues with executive functioning skills. So here's some key tips on where to put them. Post it on their mirror in the bathroom. Post it on their door when they're leaving the door in the morning to go out to school. If there's a checklist for what do you have in your backpack, which we use a lot in this house, making sure that you have everything, put it right on the door, right on the way outside to go out to the car or go out to the bus. So that they make sure that they've checked everything, looked in their backpack, made sure they have all those important pieces so they can be productive at school. More on what Jackie said. Remember positive reinforcement. Negative punishment and negative reinforcement will not help your child. If they are struggling with any learning differences or executive functioning struggles, giving them negative feedback just frustrates them and makes them feel like you don't understand where they're coming from. And that's not a good thing. So remember, look at the positive things in baby steps. If your child did one thing great today, focus on that. Don't focus on what they didn't do. Model great behaviors. Okay, parents, I know that some of you also have ADHD and other learning differences because a lot of times the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. That's awesome. We love those minds. But remember, if you can model some of the behaviors you want your child to do, for example, when you come in the door, where do you put your keys? Where do you put your purse or your books or whatever you have? Model it for them. You know, if you are going to be having a conversation over dinner and asking them questions, you need to answer the questions too. How was your day? What did you do that was brave today? What did you do to help other people today? And make it go around the entire table so that you're modeling what you want to see your child do. More of what Jackie said, create clear boundaries for screen time. Really, really important. All the studies show that if you take the devices out of the room, students do exponentially better on their homework, on their tests, on listening, and on focusing. If your child uses a screen that is shared for doing gaming and for schoolwork, you should get some kind of device application to shut down the gaming when they're doing schoolwork. I personally prefer that kids have 2 different devices. Not everyone can do that, But if your child does, or if there's a desktop, for example, a big old machine that is in a place where they can do the gaming and you can hear them, that's great. But we really want to make sure that when they're focusing on their schoolwork, that they're actually doing the schoolwork and not gaming or being distracted by social media or text messages or any of those things. Again, another thing for positive reinforcement, we want to recognize effort over results. So if a child, this is part of the growth mindset. So you want to look at how your child is putting in their effort. It doesn't matter if they got a C on something. It's the fact that they made a baby step or they made a big step and they studied and they're learning how to study. And maybe they didn't do it all the right way, or maybe it was a tough exam. But the idea is to say, I'm really proud of you for working on this. When it comes to executive functioning skills, I'm really proud of you for remembering all of your things that you need to bring to school and all your homework items that you need to bring home. That reinforcement of the effort is what will drive their internal motivation to continue. And number one rule that should probably be on top, a bedroom is not for studying. A bedroom is for sleeping. Studies show that when you are in the bedroom, your brain is screaming sleep because the bed is there. Sleep, sleep, lay down, get comfy, sleep. Okay, well, if you're in the bedroom and you're doing studying and your brain's going to sleep, what's going to happen? You're not going to be efficient, you're not going to be effective, and you're going to ultimately end up probably getting into bed, especially kids that have that challenge with transitioning and shifting, like Jackie was talking about, where they're going to get in bed to lay down to do something, and then they're going to fall asleep, and then they're not going to get to their homework, and it's going to just make a big snowball effect of challenges for them to face. So let's go to the next slide. I'm going to start with 10 strategies and go through each one. I hope we have time to get through them. I will go a little bit quickly. If you need me to slow down, just send me a note in the chat. I just want to make sure that we get through all of them. Our first tip, you need to create a really great designated workspace for your child to do their work. So things that we want to focus on here. We don't want it to be too quiet or too noisy because, as you know, kids with ADHD sometimes like something going on in the background, or they get distracted by their own thoughts. Sometimes because kids listen to music, sometimes they want to hear something in the kitchen going on, but it's really important that it's not in too quiet of a space and that it also is not too noisy for distractions. You want to have natural light, good ventilation, a strong internet connection. Don't put your kid in the basement where they don't have a strong internet connection and there's no visual light that's keeping them awake and motivating them to continue. Obviously, you need power outlets, and it's great if you can have a printer nearby for the students to be able to access easily. So on the left is actually my son's COVID workstation. And I use this as an example because today he has the exact same thing. He just took the sides down. The reason the sides are on there is his sister was right next to him at the other window during COVID doing the same thing. My son has ADHD, so does my daughter, very different types. You will notice in this picture, there is a monitor so that the child can use their laptop from school and put it on a bigger screen to help them focus with less distractions. There is a big clock. You want a big clock. And behind the big clock, you will see a visual time timer. I'll go over time timer when we talk about time management, but those are two very important tools to have on that desk. If your child likes to use a keyboard or something else, you can do that too. And make sure as you see if they need to have headphones to distract themselves or even listen to foreign language work or whatever they're working on, go ahead and have those nearby and charging all the time. And then last, you want all of the right supplies right there so they don't have to get up and say, oh, I got to go get a pencil. Oh, I have to go get water. Oh, I have to go to my notebook. We want everything in the same place so they sit down, they focus, they take their brain breaks, and they continue to power through and get their work done. So last thing you just want to place for the backpack. So these are just some ideas for you to consider. Okay, let's talk about tip 2, binders and e-binders. So I'm sure you guys have heard this lovely thing from teachers that say you need a binder for every class. No, if your child is struggling with executive functioning skills and they have a binder for every class, what are the chances that they leave some of those binders at home? What are the chances that they don't know which binder to put things in? What are the chances that they bring the wrong binder? Don't listen to it. Tell your teacher your child has executive functioning challenges and you are going to use either 1 or 2 binders. They should be D-ring binders so they don't break, so they can easily open and close. And make sure that there's a specific place in the binder for each class and for all the different papers. And I actually share a QR code where you can watch how to do this later on, and you can go and see and share with your child exactly how to do this. Now, here's a tip that maybe you guys didn't know. Do you know that in Google, you can create folders that are colored? So you can match a binder tab that's red a spiral notebook or a composition notebook, that's red, loose paper, as well as their e-binder folder in red, all for math. And if you do this, color coding, we know, works extremely well to imprint in people's minds with executive functioning challenges. So it's great to start that early. Make math red or whatever color your child wants it to be, starting now, and have that remain the same all the way until they go through college. It will be a visual cue and it will be a reminder, and they will remember to put things in there and they will remember how to handle the information. The e-binders also should have subfolders that match exactly the subfolders that are in the binders. Now, for older kids that have A and B days, we really recommend just 2 binders. 1 binder for the A day, 1 binder for the B day. And again, you can watch how we set these up. It's a little bit complicated, but it's a great way because then the kids are able to file everything that they have. Make sure they have that 3-hole punch. So when they get home, if a teacher didn't 3-hole punch something, they can put it in there. Older students, especially those getting into high school, really prefer an accordion folder. Now, I don't mean a Redwell. For those of you who are lawyers, you'll know what a Redwell is. I mean a literal accordion folder that they sell on Amazon. You can also get them at Container Store. That is a plastic device that has dividers in it. You want to label the dividers, each of the classes' names. You want to have a folder inside there that's going to have the homework so they can that they have to bring home tonight, and you're going to organize it exactly similarly to how you do the binders. Again, I don't want to give you too much time on this because you can go ahead and watch the video that I have to share. And also kids in their older ages don't like to pull out their binders in class, so that's why the accordion folder can really work. On every piece of paper should be a name, the date, and the course or the title of what they're doing. So when it gets lost, doesn't make it into the binder, we know where it goes and we can reference it later for studying. Okay, here are the QR cards that I mentioned. If you want to go ahead, I'm going to give you a second to scan them. These are videos of exactly how to set up your binders and your e-binders. Give me a thumbs up in the chat if you're good, guys. Good? You guys get it? Okay. You'll be able to share this later on too. I just don't want to take up too much time because we have a lot to get through. Okay, tip 3. Back to what Jackie said. What does time passing feel like? You and I may know what it feels like to say, in 5 minutes, be downstairs. But kids that struggle with executive functioning skills, ADHD, etc., they don't actually understand what the passage of time feels like. They have to learn what it is. So if you want them to help them stick to a schedule, to estimate the time, to learn how much time things are going to take, you want to give them the tools like the time timer that we talked about earlier. You want to have visual timers to show them how much longer they have to go till maybe a brain break or push forward, to get to 15 minutes. Here's an interesting tip. It used to be that kids from basically 0 until 20 years old could focus on one thing at a time for 2 minutes per year of age. So a 15-year-old could do 30 minutes at a time. About 7 years ago, that all changed. Why do you think? Devices and instant feedback. Now it's 1 minute per year. So if you have a 15-year-old and you're getting 15 minutes of focused time on one thing, you're doing well. So what you want to do is use a time timer to help them push closer to 20 and then have a brain break. And then eventually it will become longer. But when your kid starts to glaze over, they're not being efficient. So we really, really, really want to understand what that time feels like. They see it visually. They estimate how long things go. We train them to then go back and on your calendar or in your planner, okay, I thought this was going to be 15 minutes. It was an hour. Let's understand that so that next time we can see how long homework's going to be taking us. Chunking, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes, that also helps kids understand in small bites how long things take. And then visually map tasks. And we'll talk about that when we get the planner. Kids need to see things visually. And although they fight you on a planner, they really need to have the planner so they can map things out and really follow what they have going on very easily. It's also the goal with using graphic organizers for students with executive functioning challenges. And lastly, as I noted, you should time activities. Make sure they know how much time they're going to use and then have them understand as that time goes by, watching the time timer. The time, it's for those of you who don't know what it is, basically you turn the timer, so let's say to 15 minutes, and it shows a whole bunch of red. As the red gets smaller, they run out of time, they start to understand what the passage of time feels like. Okay, here is the time timer that comes in many forms. It comes all different colors. Your child can pick one that they love. They can get a bigger one, a smaller one, a turquoise one, a pink one. It doesn't really matter. What I don't recommend is the time timer app on their phone. That is not the same thing, and their device is right next to them. This is not an expensive tool, and the kids don't want to have their phone near them. So get this one. Don't download the app because it's just the device sitting right next to them where they can do social media or text friends or do other things. So tip number 4 is about chunking. I'm sure many of you have heard about this term. It's called breaking down things into small tasks. And that way they can attain the goal of the small task more easily and they don't get so overwhelmed. So breaking things into manageable steps will help them build momentum. Again, it will help them follow their task for longer. And it will also help reduce them from just freezing when they get complete anxiety over being overwhelmed. So tools for chunking that you need, we've talked about the visual timers, a checklist so that they can go through and understand what are they going to do in their planner. Everything that's built out in their planner, they're going to cross off as they do it. They can chunk things out right in the planner. Oh, look at that. There's an R missing from the planner. I don't know why that happened. Oh, it looks like I went to the next line. A planner we're going to talk about in a minute. They need to have a physical planner. I know they'll fight you, but we're going to talk about why they need to have that. And finally, brain breaks. I've mentioned this a little bit. Brain breaks are when you take your mind off of what you're doing and you let it just reset. It doesn't need to take that long. It can be as little as doing a stretch and saying, I'm calming my amygdala. You do not need it to be anything extraordinary. They can get up, they can get a glass of water, they can breathe, go to the bathroom, but you want to use that time timer to time it because a brain break really shouldn't be more than 5 minutes. And then they come back to the task that they're doing, or that gives them a chance, as Jackie explained, to do a better way of shifting to the next task. Very important to use brain breaks. Oop, there we go. Here we're going to talk about planners. Portals are not planners. Let me repeat. The portals that the kids go in, that I have a lovely picture of here, I didn't log into it, but you know what it is, are not planners. Portals have information about what students need to do. It does not break down the task. It does not tell them in a visual way when it's due. It doesn't break down into multi-step processes. It simply has what the kids need to do. So therefore, they need to use a planner to plan ahead and to map everything out. We have a planner that I'll show you later. It's an executive functioning planner. We created, it's custom, and it really helps kids map things out. It has different views and components, which I'll also talk about. So they need to map out, kids need to start studying a few days before exams. That's not in the exam on Friday. You need to map that out. Planners are highly individualized. So if school has a planner, you can go ahead and use that. But if at the end of the day, the child doesn't have a list showing exactly what they have to do in the evenings, then it's probably not the best planner for kids who are struggling with executive functioning skills. A planner and there's ones online you can buy ours, but really an executive function planner really helps kids identify in specificity what they have to do and breaks it down into smaller pieces, allows them to estimate for time. And at the end of the day, they have a checklist that they can go through to get things done. Teacher announcements in class and assignments written on the board are also a key component that many teachers use in addition to a portal. So you want to have the kids taking their planners with them so that they can write these things down. For kids who have accommodations and can take pictures of things, they can also do that and synchronize it with their planner later. So what makes a good planner? You can go ahead and scan this QR code and see our planner and purchase it. I'm happy to give everybody from here a discount. I just need to set up a code for you, but go ahead and scan that and you can see what it is. But what makes a good planner? It doesn't have to be ours. One place to find everything you have to do. One place to plan assignments and study over time. You want a month at a glance and you want a week at a glance. And why do you want those two? Because things go beyond a week and you want to map them out in the month at a glance so the kids can really see what they have to do. And a week at a glance is everything that they've got going on that week so that they can see exactly what they have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Many of the portals these days show what's coming up. They can go ahead and map that out and plan ahead on the weekends so that they're prepared for their week. You want to have a place for the school calendar. Kids with executive functioning skills need to know what's coming up. If you get our planner on the inside cover, it says, please paste your school calendar here. It goes right there. So that's important. And again, as I've talked about, you need to have the daily to-do list at the end. And it's important that the planner includes not just school. Executive functioning skills across all of the aspects of life. And so we want kids to be able to manage everything in one place. So they should include, today I have soccer after practice. Today I have to do the dishwasher stuff at home. They should have that all mapped out. So when they're time managing and planning, they really have a good plan and can break down what they need to do. Okay, here's the big tips here. 6 steps to using a planner. Write something next to every class every day. If it's none, write none. But don't leave it blank, because then the student is going to think, or your child's going to think, wait, did I forget something? Or do I have homework? If they write none, they know they don't have it. You want to be very specific about the assignments rather than being categorical. In math, read pages 4 to 5 and do every other problem that is assigned. That's specific. Break longer term assignments into manageable entries. So we've talked about this. You want to map it out over the month, map it out over the weeks, break things down so that they can see exactly every evening what they need to do to ultimately get to the final goal. It's important to star tasks if you have something due the next day. You can circle it, you can make a cloud, you can put a smiley face on it. Doesn't really matter. Just make sure it's highlighted to the student that they need to get those things done as a priority, because they're actually due the next day. And then, doesn't it feel good when you have a list and you get through it and you check or scratch things off? That's a motivator, right? Because you want to get to the next thing and cross it off. So that's what we want kids to do. Cross out what they finished. Then they'll get to the next thing. They cross that out. It makes them feel like they're accomplishing something. It helps them move forward in their progress. And it also gives them confidence that they're actually being able to do the things that they have been expected to do for school or at home. Okay, I don't know if that was in order. I lost track. Tip 6, the 3 Ds of prioritization. Kids struggle with prioritization. As Jackie said, everything's the same priority. So how do kids figure out what to do first? This is a way to help kids understand what they can do first. You want to help them to feel less anxious and more in control of what they're doing, and this will help. So first, due date. That's the first D. You want to rank assignments by when they're actually due. If they're due the following day, again, that should be something that's a priority that's done first. Look at the difficulty of the assignments. Rank the assignments by difficulty, and then you can tackle easier tasks first and then difficult tasks, easier tasks, difficult tasks. Or if you're really motivated when you come home from school, bite off the difficult task first. This, again, helps kids get through their homework without sort of leaving things behind and not doing everything that they need to do on time. Desire. This ties right into what I was saying by what do you want to do first? Consider what your child wants to do first. Tell them, what is the easy assignment, or what is the most interesting to you? Let's start with that. Now, remember, you have to go in this ranking though. The due date obviously is first, and then you want to look at desire and difficulty. I hope this helps you guys. Here are some tips from our program on prioritization. How do you map things out? What do you do with your time? And then let's look at how well you manage things. Happy to share these things. You're welcome to reach out to me, but you feel free to take a screenshot as well. But hopefully these will be something that can help you and you can use with your child right away. Okay, tip 7, study plans and strategies. There's literally 4 words, 4 days, 4 ways. 4 days, 4 ways to create a study plan. A study plan is a structured schedule that outlines the specific steps that need to be taken in order to learn the materials and be prepared. It includes what subjects and topics will be studied. It includes what are the types of, how are you going to interact with the data? How are you going to interact with the information? How are you going to learn the information, and picking specific ways that you learn best by the class. It doesn't always have to be the same way that you study. But over 4 days, you want to map out 4 different ways that you interact with the information so that you learn it. By the 4th day, the child will be in review mode, and they will be ready for what comes on the 5th day. They have a test or quiz. So here's how to create a study plan. Again, these are our worksheets. Feel free to screenshot them. So on the left side, you have all the different ways you can study. Okay. Have your child pick 4 for whatever they're studying for. Figure out which ones of those they like that helps them the best. They can try one thing. If it doesn't work, try something else, but pick 4 different specific ways off of one of lists like this. And then map it out in their planner. So as you see in the planner we have to the right, it's very specific times, and it maps out when you're going to do the different things. So you're going to quiz myself, you're going to highlight notes, you're going to review and do homework. You basically want to map out each of these 4 things and what you're going to do on each day. And that way you're breaking it down for them. They don't feel overwhelmed and they actually know exactly how to study for those things that are coming up. Okay, I'm quickly running out of time, so I'm going quicker. Tip 8, goal setting. I hope you guys have all heard about goal setting using SMART goals. It's really important. I can't tell you how much this helps kids with task initiation. You want to build a very attainable goal, and you want to start with this. You want to make it a specific goal. You want to make it clear. So let's talk about math goal. I would like to hand in all of my assignments this quarter on time. Okay. Now, how do you map that out? You talk about that put it in the what you're writing down, and then make it measurable. How do you know if you're successful? Well, at the end of the quarter, you're going to look and see if you had any late assignments. If you didn't, then you did it great. Is it attainable for your child to really accomplish the goal they're setting? Make sure it's attainable. Maybe it's just to have 5 late assignments based on what they're doing. They want to be able to reach the goal because that's motivating, and they want to be able to see that they can actually achieve these goals that they set. Make it realistic. Again, think about something that they can actually do. Going for straight A's when you're having executive functioning skills and currently getting C's is not something that's realistic. So remember to keep it realistic. And it has to be bound by time, because if it's not bound by time, then you don't know when you've gotten there. So like I said, doing all of my math assignments and turning them in on time this quarter. That is specific, it's attainable, it's realistic, and it has bound by time. Task initiation. So we're going to pick up where Jackie left off. You need multiple executive functioning skills in order to task initiate. Task initiation is when children start the task at the time they've planned to. That means we don't procrastinate. We've planned to start our homework 30 minutes after we get home. We sit down and start. How many of you guys have kids that struggle with this? They find all different ways not to start. So here are some of the things that are involved from an executive functioning perspective in order to have strong task initiation. Task analysis. You have to understand what you're doing. You have to have good, strong materials management, know where things are. Task switching, as Jackie talked about. You need to be able to switch from one task to another. You need to have that optimized workspace that we talked about earlier, something where everything is right in the right place. They're able to sit down and focus and get their work done. Cognitive flexibility. This is a struggle, and Jackie talked about this a little bit too. You have to have the ability to be flexible in what you're doing. And a lot of kids with EF challenges are rigid. And so this is a skill that is actually an executive functioning skill that they need to work hard at. And our program covers all of these things. I'm sure Jackie's does too. We just don't have time to dive deep into each of them. Another one is making decisions. Is your child struggling with making decisions? Do they actually know how to make a decision? Do they know the steps to take to go through and get to the right decision for them? That's also an executive functioning task. Self-management. Jackie definitely talked about this. This is one of the hardest things for kids, to force themselves to start things, to manage themselves, and to hold themselves accountable. And finally, they have to have the skills for plannering, as we call it, which is doing the things we talked about in the planner and following directions. So this is a lot for kids to task initiate. So I just want you to understand, when your child won't start, they're dealing with a lot. So again, breaking things down into smaller things, helping them see they only have to focus for 15 minutes at a time before a brain break, or 10 minutes if it's 10-year-old. It all will help them to be able to start to reach these goals of initiating what they want to start when they plan to start it. Okay, I just wanted to go through a couple of roadblocks that happen when you have challenges with task initiation. And some of this is real world, right? So you have a child who says, I don't know where to start. What kind of EF skill is needed? The task analysis. We have a strategy called CUCC. It's for following written instructions. It's circling, underlining, counting, and oh gosh, I'm forgetting the last C now, but basically it's how you follow written instructions, so not to forget any steps. I don't have what I need. Okay, that's materials management. You need to be organized, have those binders, e-binders, have everything set up, have your accordion folder, have your backpack with everything you need in it. Additional strategies here, go back to establishing those routines. Material management comes down to building a routine of what you're going to bring home, what you're going to take to school, when you're going to pack your bag, what are you going to have in front of you. So again, it goes back to those routines. I'm overwhelmed or distracted. How often do we hear that? Optimize the workspace. Let's go back to looking at, is everything where they need to be? Are they not having a device next to them? Can they actually focus for the amount of time they need to? I don't understand what I'm supposed to be doing. Okay, well, if that planner is filled out and they know how to follow written instructions, they're going to be able to do this. Oh, I'm still focused on other work. Task switching. This is when a brain break can come in. Take a brain break and switch over to the new task. I can't decide on the details or the topic or what to start with first. This goes to decision making. When students understand the steps they need to prioritize and make the right decisions, they're able to not have this challenge as a roadblock in front of them. Graphic organizers are great for kids with EF challenges too, because they can visually map out what they need to do. I only have 1 hour and now I'm panicking, but I'm going to get it done. Okay, well, this goes to self-management, right? The procrastination and the panic sets in. You have to tell them to breathe and don't panic, and you're going to get it done, and you have to encourage them, but we want them not to get there. So we want to teach them those self-management skills. Okay, number 10. Sorry, I forgot my water. Tip 10, the role of patience and persistence. Mastering executive functioning skills is like mastering a sport. It doesn't happen overnight. You have to practice, 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 just like learning an instrument. You have to build new habits that become routines that create that automaticity in the brain. The automaticity for kids who have ADHD and challenges with their working memory frees up that working memory to hold more information and give it time to go into the long-term memory. This takes time to build up. Students can be reminded regularly that learning, like anything else, is going to feel weird in the beginning. It's going to be uncomfortable when you learn a new sport and you kick the soccer ball the right way or wrong way, or you don't catch the ball on the field hockey stick or the lacrosse stick. You want to remind them that it's just like a sport, just like doing anything new. It's going to feel a little wacky at first, and it's okay. But the more you practice it, the more it's going to become natural and second nature. I have to say this again. Jackie and I keep drilling this home. Positive reinforcement is the only reinforcement that works. Depriving your children of things and taking away doesn't do anything to motivate them. If they love screen time, if they get stuff done, give them some extra screen time. Focus on little tiny things that they are able to do and give them reinforcements, and more will follow. Back to another thing Jackie said, we believe in working with everyone in the circle of support. Many of your children may work with OT, PT, therapists, psychiatrists, case managers, teachers, administrators, other folks in their circle of support. It's really important that you get that circle of support talking to each other. If you have someone who's working with your child and doesn't know that when anxiety hits, that the therapist has said you need to stand up and lift one leg and jump 3 times, then they're not going to hear the same consistent messaging. And consistent messaging is so important for kids to understand what they need to do and to build that automaticity, right? So it's routine, over and over again, hearing the same things. You want your circle of support talking to each other so that everybody's communicating consistently with the student. So the last thing is, progress is not always linear, but every step forward is worth, sorry, I'm kidding. Is worth celebrating. And again, this goes back to the positive reinforcement. So with that, I'm going to move along and give this back to Jackie to speak quickly about her services. You can scan this to schedule a 30-minute Q&A, free consultation, whatever you want to call it with her. Here is her information as well. Jackie, go right ahead. Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute.
How many times do you say, how many times a day do we say you're on mute? Anyway, or your camera's off or whatever. Okay. Oh, thanks, Sherry. Did you see the chat? So I work with students, parents, and adults. I coach adults with ADHD. I coach parents who are helping their children. So I coach the parent, help their child or to keep peace in the home. Now with the student coaching, I do academic coaching, but I also do social skills coaching, personal routines coaching, all kinds of things. So it's whatever you need, I do. Okay. So I also do, as I mentioned, I do training for educators, and I'm going to tell you more about that in a second. Okay. So let me just go back for a second. Just go back.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. So that QR code is going to lead you to my Calendly.com link, and that's where you can schedule a 30-minute consult, a Q&A to speak with me. Okay, now we'll go. Okay, so for parents, I'm starting a parent book study with group coaching. It's an 8-week group coaching program using the principles of the Russell Barkley book called Principles for Raising a Child with ADHD. So it's going to be book and coaching and meet with people and talk to people, parents, because we all need to be there for each other, right? So I have information here. It's very small, but I'll be happy to send the flyer to the SEPTA, and this way you can post it. You can, in addition, I also do, like I said, I've done a full day training for educators, executive functions and ADHD in and out of the classroom. And if that can be broken down into small workshops or what have you. And so I do that. So that's first QR code here is the same one that was on the other page. Then that was on the other slide, and that's to schedule a Q&A. Whether you are a parent interested in group coaching or somebody interested in any of my services, or a teacher or an administrator interested in having me present for the school, any of those things, that's what you scan. I also have a little tool called the 6 Simple Strategies for Focus, and that is the second QR code there. So it was such a pleasure, I have to say, to meet everyone and to have this opportunity to share. And I will be doing the other presentation and sending it, and it will in the next week or so. And so it'll be up, you'll be able to get access to that. Okay, and Wendy, it was a pleasure working with you. I have to say
me
that.
too. So similar information. We do a whole bunch of things, but since this is focused on executive functioning skill, which is our sweet spot, we work in person and virtually or hybrid. We customize around every student, and we work 7 days a week. We work with 3rd graders through college. Here's our information. You can schedule a call using the QR code. Happy to share information. I talk to every parent who wants to work with us or who has questions for an hour for free or more. I really want to help you find the right support for your children. And I know that we're running out of time because I can see Amanda going, let's get going. So this is for Q&A if we have time to do it. Again, I just copied while we're doing Q&A, those QR codes in case you didn't get a chance to do it, to scan them. And I turn it over to Amanda.
We do have some questions. So
Great.
I'm glad that you mentioned the age levels, because we did have some questions about whether this presentation or similar these tips would be applicable to all ages.
So real quick, for our 3rd and 4th and 5th graders, the tips do work, but we actually customize for elementary students and then middle school and going forward. We have a different set of worksheets and curriculum. The curriculum's the same, actually. It's a different set of tools to use for those kids. If you're interested in that, call me. I'm happy to share that information with you, share the tips, etc.
We did have some questions about kindergarten. Students as young as kindergarten, how can we help to support executive functioning at that age? Would any of the tips tonight that were shared support that?
Modeling, and building routines. A kindergarten needs to understand that when they take things out, things have to go back where they're supposed to go. Don't do things for your kids. Show them that they can be independent and do things on their own. It builds confidence, it builds their self-esteem, and it helps them be better in school when they get there and later in life. So I would definitely tell you that with kindergartners, you're not going to want to sit down and teach them executive functioning skills with their school. But what you're going to want to do is start to build those routines, teach those habits, make sure that when they're coming home from kindergarten, they're washing their hands, they're getting their snack. Same thing every day. Bedtime. Bedtime is important. Nothing before, no screens an hour before, and bedtime is the same every night. I say this, and I'm Jewish. I'm sorry for saying it this way, but I am a bedtime Nazi. I really am. I am really about my kids going to sleep on time and getting up so they're fresh and ready for the day. So with that, I tell you, those are great things that can happen for the younger kids, kindergarten, 1st, 2nd grade.
And I'm going to add to that. Know your kid. If your kid comes home, and judge the length of the break and the type of the break before they start any kind of routines based on how they are when they get home. Because one kid can hop right into the homework and another one is going to need some downtime. Of course, the downtime will be, whatever it needs to be, and the type of downtime, right? But also, if your child has been pushing himself all day just to get through the day, we're going to keep that in mind. And that may need, that will also decrease the focus getting through the homework, because now that part of the brain's already exhausted. So
we did have a specific question come in about the planners in the chat. What if the handwriting is so hard or illegible that it makes writing everything in a planner all that much more difficult?
So in that case, we would teach kids to live on a Google Calendar or whatever calendar they use for school and map things out. And just a quick tip on how to do that. When they estimate the time, they block the time. When it takes longer, they go back to the calendar and readjust so that they see how long it actually took them. This is very important for them to understand how long things take. For kindergartners, I don't think you're going to use this kind of calendar first or second grade, but as the kids start to become more independent and are required to change classrooms and have more homework in third grade, fourth grade, this really does work. You can do that, and I'm happy to walk you through that anytime. The other thing is you can print labels if you want, not for every assignment, but maybe just sort of on a general basis, put what their after school activities are and maybe some blocked just homework times, and you can help them do that. And then they can also have the electronic calendar. Again, I just really like them to have the month at a view. And even if their handwriting is terrible, help them do it. Have them tell you and you write it down. This can be a joint process.
Okay. Do you have any family executive functioning tips for when multiple household members struggle with executive functioning?
These all apply. I will let Jackie speak to the adults because I don't work with adults, but I will tell you that all these things still apply and you still have to master the same executive functioning skills. And working with a coach when you're an adult is really, truly helpful. So I highly recommend talking to Jackie about that specifically for executive functioning coaching for adults. And Jackie, go ahead.
So you may or may not like my answers. Every home, every individual is different. So I can't, for me, the way I work is I work with the family to figure out what's working and what's not working, because depending on what the challenges are, it looks different. So I know that's kind of a vague answer, but in some ways it's also about for the adult you don't have to do everything perfectly. Just figure out the things you need to do if it's really hard to get through everything. Okay. And decide what are those big high priority items that you want. And I'm speaking just to the adult, to the parent. What are those high priority things that you want to get done for yourself, and making sure that you have enough sleep, proper nutrition, get exercise, not too much screen time, get outside, do a combination of those things to take care of yourself, because of course is the old oxygen on the airplane. You have to give oxygen to yourself in order to be able to help your kids. And knowing that these are challenges, be real and be true to who you are. Right? So I know that's kind of a vague answer, but depending on the house, I've worked with different families, and what we come up with together is different for one than another.
Makes sense. My 2E third grader with ADHD loses points on routine classwork by missing details. What is the best way to build the habit of checking his work?
So that goes to our CUCC method and making sure that you go through things and answer all the different questions. And if that person wants to contact me, feel free. I can share that information with you. And it's also about teaching your child that being done first is not the goal. The goal is to probably be done last, to make sure you have everything that you need to have there, go over it multiple times. But the CUCC method is what helps kids do that. They find all the details and they don't miss steps.
How much should we help students on the autism spectrum and ADHD kids with homework when it is something they can do but don't really like to do?
No, that's all of our students. So it's about celebrating the small things that they do, because initially what you want to do is you're going to use external motivation. So again, extra screen time, $1, whatever motivates your kid. But as they become successful and they do these little things, it's going to make them feel better. It's going to build their self-confidence, and they're going to then do the next thing. And so as you start to build up those little things, then they find it's not so hard. They have brain breaks. They can control their time, and they are getting things done and task initiating and finishing and moving on.
And I'm going to put a different spin on that. The question is, at the end of the day, yes, they have the intelligence to be able to do the assignments. And when they say they don't want to, does that mean they don't want to, or does that mean they don't have any bandwidth left? Because that's one of the things that has to be considered. If so, then know your kid and know remember the 30% behind? Okay, so now if they're done for the day, even if they have the intelligence, then they may need more support. If you're a child who is, let's say, 8 and has executive skills of 6 or 5, just give them a little bit of support if that's what they need. So two different perspectives on the same thing, but you mishmash it together and come up with it.
That spoon theory idea is really important. How much do we have left to give in any given day? And that's important for all of us.
Right, exactly.
You had mentioned checklists with a backpack. We did have a specific question come in about backpacks. Do you have any other recommendations other than like a visual checklist for helping a student keep their backpack and schoolwork organized in middle and high school?
So that's your binders and your e-binders. And you can, again, going back to my laminator, you can buy luggage tags and put the checklist on that, laminate it as a luggage tag and attach it to your kid's backpack. The other thing I recommend for kids that lose things is tile or the Apple Air tags, put them in the backpack. So when they can't find things or they can't find the backpack, because you know that always happens, it's in there. And what you want to do to help your child is every night that they come home, if they're willing to work with you, dump the backpack and help them file everything so that you don't get this mishmash of stuff at the bottom of the bag. Especially when you get in middle and high school, you need to be able to go back to review the notes all along in order to do comprehensive exams.
I appreciate that you talked about if they are willing to work with you. We had a question come in about demand avoidance. Do you have any thoughts or suggestions or recommendations for families who have children who have demand avoidance?
Jackie, you're welcome to answer this. I'll just tell you one thing. Kids have DNA in them that as they get older, it's screaming, you have to go out and hunt and gather, or you have to go kill things. And it's saying, get away from my parents, get away from my parents. So remember, the kids don't not like you. Their DNA is screaming for them to be more independent. So the number one recommendation I can tell you is bring someone else in. Don't sacrifice your relationship with your children. Have someone else come in that they can relate to, that relates to them, that they can talk to. It's a mentor, it's a person who can coach them. And then you will be able to preserve your relationship. And maybe eventually your child will feel good about sharing things with you and having you being involved.
Love it. That's great. That's great.
Do you have anything to add, Jackie?
I don't know. It's kind of I kind of would say the same thing, but also I would want to know why. What is the reasoning behind it? And what small win can they, maybe they can't get through everything, but they may be able to get through some of it, right? What's going on? Because sometimes it's a deeper question, that's a deeper question that they may not even know the answer to.
Well, it is 8:58, so I do want to thank you both for your time. We did have questions come in that we did not have a chance to get to tonight. If you guys are open to it, we can certainly send them to you and then share.
Please do.
We're happy to do that. Thank you so much. This was a fantastic presentation. We really appreciate you sharing your expertise with the community.
I hope the parents and the educators on the line all learn something new and that they can apply tonight with their kids.
Yeah. Do you have anything final to share?
No, I noticed that there's a question about lacking social skills. And please email me. I'm putting my email in the chat if you have any questions.
Yep. And you can book a free call with us using either of these QR codes. I just want to thank SEPTA for having us, and thank you for bringing Jackie and I together. I think that we have different strengths, and I think it came together really well, and we really enjoyed getting to know each other. And I think that there are, experts and the right match for your child. It's really important to feel when you find the right person to help your child, that you feel it's the right person for your family and your child, and that you feel confident with them. If you ever want a recommendation or you're working with someone, I will be completely honest about what I think, what I see, what I know, what I've heard. And I don't need you to work with us. I want you to find the right people. So I'm happy to explain to you, what do you want to ask? What do you need to look for? Those kinds of things. Just call me, just schedule a call, and we can talk about it. I tell every family that there is no need to go with us. I want you to talk to different people and hear how other people provide services so that you can understand which you think would be better for your child and your family.
And if it's for adults, And also many of the people I should mention I coach were adult diagnosed with ADHD. Feel free to reach out as well.
Thank you both. And thank everyone. I thank everyone for joining us tonight. We did have one question about like how do we can better inform our teachers at our schools. This presentation is recorded. We will get it up on our YouTube channel. It's not the only answer, but perhaps a start would be sharing this presentation with your child's team, just for consideration. Thank you everybody who came out and joined us tonight. It was great to have you. One final announcement from us as SEPTA. We do have a few vacant positions on our board. We need a communications chair. We are also looking for a volunteers chair, and we have in the past had an outreach chair that works with our membership chair kind of a bit as co-chairs. So if anybody is interested in either of those, in any of those positions, please reach out to me at president@fairfaxcountysepta.org or to our Vice President Lavanya at vicepresident@fairfaxcountysepta.org. And we will get back in touch with you. We did have a couple people reach out regarding the special ed liaisons chair position, and I will be reaching out to them this week.
I just want to invite everybody on this call this Friday. I will send it to you guys and you can distribute it to the group. We have a series called Less Stress Parenting, and our webinar, we bring other people in from the community to give resources to parents. It's really not us talking, so you'll just see me introduced and then you won't hear anything else from me. On Friday, we are bringing in expert parenting coach for kids with ADHD and other challenges. Her name is Rachel Bailey. She gives practical tips that you can use right away. And maybe you guys know her. It's free. It's an hour over lunchtime, and you can just sign up, and then you'll also get the recording, and we'll post that as well. So I'll send that information to you guys, and anybody is welcome to join.
Thank you. We will share that. That is part of why we need a communications chair, just FYI, to help share that information. We have worked with Rachel Bailey in the past before COVID, so not recorded, but we had a fantastic experience with her. Yeah. Thank you again, both for joining us. This was a fantastic presentation. Thank you to everybody for being here tonight. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.